On an ordinary day, Sophia's life changed forever. She went from never speaking a single word to calling out her name every day, all because of a lost dog. Those words, spoken in the silence of the empty room, began to unfold like a distant memory, but full of pain and redemption, as if time itself had paused. Who could have imagined that that silence, which seemed eternal, would be broken by a simple yet profound gesture from a being who, apparently, had no voice at all? This is not just the story of a child and a dog. It is the story of a silent transformation born of pain, loneliness, and hopelessness. A true story inspired by the strength that many of us forget exists within us. And a dog whose simple presence could awaken an entire life. Sophia was always a different child, born without the ability to express herself, without a word that could escape her mouth. She grew up in silence. Over the years, the emptiness in her home grew heavier. Her mother's gaze, always worried, looked for some hope in the little things, but it seemed that nothing could break the barrier between Sophia and the world. Sophia's silence was not just an absence of words, but the absence of any connection with the world around her. Each day seemed like an endless echo of the day before. To others, she was just another child with a problem. They didn't see what Sophia felt in her heart, a deep longing to communicate, to be heard, to belong to something bigger. But no matter how hard she tried, the words wouldn't come. Until the day he showed up. Sophia's house had a characteristic smell, an aroma of longing mixed with the emptiness of unspoken conversations. The small apartment, which was once full of laughter, was now reduced to a space marked by silent sadness. The wind blew through the curtains of the open window, but inside everything seemed still. Sophia spent her days looking out the window, watching life happen outside while she remained isolated in her own world. With each glance she cast at others, she felt more distant, more invisible. Her parents, although loving and hardworking, didn't know what to do anymore. They tried therapies, medicines, consultations with specialists, but nothing seemed to work. Sophia remained there, mute, like a shadow that no one could reach. The pain was not just in his inability to speak, but in the constant feeling of being an unsolved puzzle. Her parents talked about options for a better future, but Sophia's silence was like an insurmountable wall between them. She heard everything, but the words were nothing more than indistinct sounds in her mind. The mother's love and the father's effort were visible, but the distance that separated them seemed insurmountable. It was on a gray afternoon, when the rain seemed to want to erase the last colors of the world, that destiny decided to cross their paths. That day, a pet adoption cart parked in the square in front of Sophia's house. It was a Friday, and Sophia's mother, trying to distract her daughter from her routine of silence, decided to go for a quick walk. The sky was overcast with clouds threatening a storm, but the sound of the rain, instead of driving people away, seemed to attract them to the temporary shelter where some stray dogs were waiting for a new home. Sophia didn't know what to expect. She had never shown any interest in animals. Her life was filled with more internal issues than external ones. But her mother, smiling with a sparkle in her eyes, took her to the place. Sophia, as always, walked silently beside her, with her eyes fixed on the ground, lost in her own thoughts. That's when she saw him. In the corner of the cart, hidden, lay a dog with thick brown fur, a scar on his front paw, and a distant look in his eyes. His eyes, although filled with pain, conveyed a quiet wisdom. He was not like the other dogs there, full of energy and hope. He seemed to be a reflection of Sophia herself, a wounded, lost being, but with an undeniable dignity. Sophia's mother, without hesitation, approached and extended her hand towards the dog, who, unlike the others, did not take a single step forward. He just watched her with that deep, silent gaze. Sophia, who until then had shown no interest in anything around her, felt a slight vibration in her chest. Her eyes met the dog's, and for the first time in a long time she felt something different. Something she didn't know how to explain, but she knew it was real. The silence between them was broken by a silent exchange, as if they both knew without words that they were lonely souls, searching for some kind of connection. Sophia's mother, noticing the silent bond, asked, "Do you want to take him home, Sophia?" The answer came in the form of a look. Sophia looked at the dog once more, and for the first time her hands moved. With a timid gesture, she touched the animal's chest as if to say, "Yes," although the words were not yet present. The mother smiled, and with a sigh of relief knew that something important was beginning. In that instant, the dog, who would later be named Sul, was destined to change not only his life but Sophia's life in ways no one could have foreseen. In the first few days, Sul hardly left the corner of the room. He slept curled up near the kitchen door as if ready to go at any moment. Sophia, for her part, maintained her routine of silence, but something subtle was beginning to change. She spent more time sitting on the floor near him. Sometimes she would just watch his slow movements. Other times she would slide a stuffed toy toward him, not waiting for him to react. But Sul would react, not with barks or a party, but with a look that acknowledged her pain and respected her time. The first morning he got up to drink water while she was in the room, Sophia smiled. Not a big smile, not an obvious gesture, just the corner of her lips lifted, as if a sliver of light had entered through a forgotten window. Her mother saw it but said nothing. She just stood there, silent, as if witnessing a miracle too small for words. As the weeks went by, Sophia began to develop habits with Sul. She would gently brush his fur, watching as the brown hairs slowly came loose. She would put fresh water in his bowl. And most impressive of all, he began to draw. He drew the sun on sheets of sulfite paper, always with the same melancholic look, always with a small scar on his front paw. And in these drawings, without knowing it, she was telling stories. She started showing the drawings to her mother. He didn't say anything, but he handed over the papers as if they were letters written with a soul. One late afternoon, as the sky turned copper-colored, the mother found Sophia and Sul sitting together in the backyard. The girl was holding a piece of bread, breaking it little by little and offering it to the dog. In an unexpected moment, Sul put his head on her lap. She didn't move, just closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Days later, something even more subtle, but profound, happened. Sophia was in the kitchen drawing while Sul slept nearby. Her mother was washing the dishes, distracted. Then, without realizing it, Sophia mumbled something. It was low, almost a whisper, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. The mother froze. She put down the plate and turned around slowly. Sophia was looking at the drawing with a pencil in her hand and had said, "Son." Just that. A word. But not just any word. It was a name, an invocation, a bridge thrown out of herself. The mother cried silently without her daughter noticing. She didn't want to scare her, but she knew. The crossing had begun, and from then on the words came little by little, as if they were hidden among the puppy's fur, escaping one by one every time Sophia petted him, or when he woke her up with a wet nose. Sul didn't just sleep in the house, he lived in Sophia's soul. And little by little she discovered that he also lived inside her. It was on a cloudy Tuesday morning that the silence was absolute again. Son was not in the yard. The water bowl remained full. The blanket in the corner of the room, intact. No sound of paws on the floor. No trace of hair in the hallways. The house, which had started breathing again in recent months, seemed trapped in a vacuum again. Sophia looked for him in every corner, under the bed, behind the curtain. She called to him with her eyes, then with hurried drawings that showed a dog running through the garden. But Sul was nowhere to be found. The worried mother went out to look around the neighborhood, in the back street, in the alleys, in the square where they used to walk on the weekends. He pasted posters on the posts, asked strangers. He described the scar on his paw, the sad look in his eyes, the way he would nuzzle someone he trusted. The following days were an invisible setback. Sophia went back to drawing, but now the papers were full of shadows. Dogs lost in the rain, closed doors, dry trees. The girl didn't cry, but slept hugging the sun blanket. She was starting to talk less again. Her mother feared that all the progress had been a puff of wind, and that now it was vanishing like smoke through her fingers. On the fourth night without sunlight, a storm fell over the city. Lightning streaked across the sky, thunder shook the windows. Sophia trembled, curled up on the couch. Her eyes did not blink. With each thunderclap, she hugged the blanket tighter, and then, like a breath from another world, she spoke. "He's scared." The mother, sitting next to her, felt her heart stop for a second. "Who, daughter?" Sophia looked out the window. Her voice was fragile but firm, like a flower bud that insists on opening even in the face of the wind. "The sun. He doesn't like thunder." It was the first complete sentence in years. The mother cried, not out of sadness but out of astonishment, because she realized that even though she was absent, Sul was still there, alive inside her, echoing, maintaining the bond, being a bridge. But that very night, as the storm raged and the world seemed about to break apart, something happened. A noise. Quick, tearing through the silence, scratching at the back door, a short bark, then another, hoarser, fainter, but recognizable. The mother ran. Sophia stood still as if afraid it was an illusion. When the door opened, rain flooded the kitchen floor, and next to it, Sul, soaking wet, shivering with an injured paw, but with eyes wide open, recognizing everything as if it had never left. Sophia didn't run. She just approached slowly and crouched down in front of him. She put her hand on his wet snout, and then, in a choked but clear voice, she said, "You're back." I knew it, and Sul laid his head on her lap as he always did. The storm continued outside, but inside the house there was peace. The reunion was not just a physical return, it was as if the absence had served to reveal what was already sealed in the invisible. The bond between the two did not depend on their constant presence, but on the transformation that Sul had ignited within Sophia. In the days that followed, the girl began to speak more frequently. Short sentences at the beginning. So questions, laughter, spontaneous answers. It was not a miracle in the literal sense. It was deeper. A release that came not from speech but from trust. Sophia now believed that the world could hear her. Because Sul, with his silence and his loyalty, had shown that pain didn't have to be permanent, and that one wasn't less whole for having scars. One sunny afternoon, the mother heard Sophia talking to Sul in the backyard. The girl explained with all the patience in the world how to draw a cat. He said where the ears were, where the mustache ended. And laugh. Laugh with your eyes closed, like someone who laughs because they finally feel at home in their own body. At school, the teachers didn't quite understand what had happened. Psychologists were still searching for terms, diagnoses, explanations, but no one could deny it. The girl who had previously lived locked away inside herself was now talking. Not to everyone, not all the time, but truthfully, with delicacy, with presence. Sul, on the other hand, seemed to age more slowly. He slept next to Sophia's bed and accompanied her to the school gate. He received affection from her classmates, but remained attentive, as if he knew that his mission was greater than just looking like a dog. one of those autumn days as they were walking together along the leaf-covered sidewalk, Sophia stopped. Her mother thought she had forgotten something, but the little girl just looked up. The sky was dotted with pink clouds, and she said, "When I didn't speak, I still thought." But no one knew. It was like screaming underwater. Mom knelt down. He did not respond with words, he just held his daughter's hand. And there, in that gesture, was everything they needed to say. Sophia looked at Sul, who had sat next to her with her ears alert and her gaze serene. "He heard," she said. Even underwater he heard, and there was the climax. Not the kind that comes with fireworks or grand revelations, but the kind that leaves a lasting impression. A moment in which the world settles silently into its new place. The pain didn't go away, but it changed form. Now it was a memory, not a prison. Sophia spoke, and her silence, once feared, was now a choice. The mornings, once marked by dense silence, became lighter. The sound of the kettle boiling now competed with the stories Sophia made up for Sul as she prepared her snack. She still spoke softly, with careful pauses between words. But she spoke, and when she was silent, it was because she was thinking, not hiding. Sul aged slowly, as if he had all the time in the world to watch the girl he had saved blossom. Sophia's mother began to notice little things. Flowers on the windowsill that her daughter was watering. Drawings left under her bedroom door, muffled laughter coming from the hallway. The house seemed to breathe again. There was life in spaces previously occupied only by absence. Some days still brought clouds, memories of pain, loss, and restlessness. But now there was a dog lying at the girl's feet, and an invisible thread that connected the three of them, made of affection, courage, and small miracles. On Sul's birthday, Sophia wrote a letter. She used an old notebook full of scribbled pages. Her mother found it later among the books in the living room. The handwriting was irregular, but each word seemed to be written with her heart. "Son, you taught me that you don't have to speak loudly to be heard. What love is when someone stays, even when we don't know how to ask. That even when everything seems broken, there is still room for the flower to grow. I love you. And if one day you are no longer here, I promise I will continue to speak for both of us." The letter was not read aloud. It didn't need to be. It was for Sul, and he already knew. On the porch at the end of the day, Sophia and Sul sat side by side, the girl with her bare feet on, the wood, the dog with its nose touching her leg. They didn't say anything. They just sat there, letting time pass as if the world didn't need anything more than that moment. She spoke with words. He, with presence, and between the two there was a peace that not even the wind dared to interrupt. Some encounters are not coincidences. They are answers. Sometimes healing comes with a pair of watchful eyes, a wet nose, and a silence full of meaning. Not every miracle makes noise. Some just lie down next to us and wait for us to breathe again. Because there are voices that come not from the mouth, but from the heart. And there are dogs who didn't come to be adopted. They came to rescue us. If this story touched your heart, just imagine how many more are still to come. Here, every bark carries a new beginning, a second chance, a brand new life. If you believe in the power of dogs to change destinies, like mine, like yours, then subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because together we'll share stories the world needs to hear and feel.